All right, so what I'm going through is, of course, the PPC cheat codes. My name is Brian Johnson, and I will be going through the 10-step process. This is a process that I have developed over the years, and I've continued to modify over the years to make sure that it's the most effective and most current, just to make sure it works the best, right? Now, I represent Canopy Management. That is an agency that I co-founded that handles marketing and advertising for brands on Amazon. And we do a pretty good job of it, do a really good job of it, actually. And so we have, we're now to the point where we're constantly trying to find the right people to work on our team. But we continue to grow year over year. We typically double each year that we've been running for the last 4 years, which is cool. But we now have over 100 staff on our team, and we now manage over $1 billion in Amazon revenue. So we do actually have a pretty good track record. This 10-step process is kind of the foundation or the basics, something that we do on a regular basis. We'll do this at minimum once per week, probably more likely maybe even a couple of times per week. Absolutely not necessarily to do it on a daily basis or less. I've seen some software that'll do it every hour, and just that's a waste of time. So let me jump in here and go through these. A lot of these you'll probably see as familiar because I was the one who originally created these back in the day, and a lot of the community has copied this. And so some of this will look familiar to you. It should, because these are best practices that are being used today, not only when I first created them, but throughout today, where our large agency is managing, of course, hundreds of millions of dollars in ad revenue on Amazon. And this is one of the tricks that we use. These are the cheat codes that we use in order to get to profitability for our clients. So some of the things I'm going to be talking about as far as the processes, the steps, the cheat codes, we're going to be talking about as far as like essentially blocking ad spend on search terms and keywords that simply don't convert. Again, that's probably a dust statement for many of you. We're going to talk about blocking ad spend on search terms and keywords that don't engage shoppers, correcting past search term and keyword mistakes, which might be new for you, and of course, blocking ad spend on ASINs that don't convert. So these can span across a few different ad types. What I would like to do is go into the basics in the slides, and then talk about where some of the special considerations that you won't normally hear in simply just a process outline that is commonly taught. So let me jump in here. Give me a 1 again in the chat here. Make sure that my slides are changing. Right now, you should be able to see a picture of me and my bio here. So if somebody give me a 1, let me know that the slides are changing for you, so that I know everything is working there. My name, of course, like I mentioned before, is Brian Johnson, and I've had the privilege of been in e-commerce for 14 years, in the Amazon space for the last 7 years. Thank you for the feedback. Appreciate it. That's given me the opportunity to coach over 20,000 brands to sell well over $1 billion. Let's put it this way. My agency now manages over $1 billion a year on Amazon. So you can imagine what a 7-year career, that number is probably quite a bit higher, especially across a lot, 20,000 brands. I can only guess at what that might be these days. But back when I first started, none of this stuff existed. There was no software. There was no training. There was no agencies at that time. There was no community or systems in place. And so I had to create a lot of these. The agency being one of the last ones that I had created back in 2018. I've created certain methodologies. The Seed to Forest, you may have heard of that before, is certainly a process that my agency uses. And then, of course, product research and rescue is what I teach outside the PPC for conversion rate optimization. If you haven't seen my YouTube channel, where I go in and I talk about increasing conversion rates so that you can make your PPC even more profitable, an extension to what I'm going to teach you today, then you definitely want to check that out. Let's start out with the first one here. So down to basics. Okay, this is a back to basics because it is essential. It's frustrating to see too many brands, too many consultants, too many agencies even overlooking some of the most basic steps that lead to pretty much guaranteed profitability in ads. And that is simply just going through and picking the low-hanging fruit, whether it's an auto-targeting ad, whether it is a sponsor product keyword targeting ads. Simply start by looking at the search terms that have gotten the correct number of clicks. In other words, the minimum viable number of clicks where you should expect that your product should convert to a sale, assuming that you've had conversions on the product, and you're going to block the ones that haven't converted, haven't produced an order within that number. Now, as a default, you'll hear me say something like 5 clicks or up to 8 clicks, right? 8 clicks is kind of pushing it a little bit in some cases, depending on how expensive the niche that you're operating in. Certainly, if you're in pet supplements, for instance, and you're paying $4 or $5 cost per click, you probably want to limit that down to 4 or 5 clicks. But it's really going to make a bigger difference if you calculate this. So the calculated number of minimum clicks that you're going to do is going to be based off of the conversion rate of the product. 5 clicks is going to be based off of 20% conversion rate. So it's going to be 1 divided by whatever the conversion rate is for the product, as you see it as the unit session percentage or USP conversion rate number in your business report for a product. So you want to, let's say you've got a 50% conversion rate. Technically, you could get away with, with running your ads for 2 clicks. That might be a little bit too few. I would say probably get at least 4 clicks, try to go over 5. In this case, I'm recommending 8. And that applies to a lot of these conversions throughout these different codes as far as search terms and keywords and ASINs that you can block from running ads further, so that you know how to calculate that properly. If you don't know the conversion rate, use 8. If you do, calculate it based off of 1 divided by the conversion rate, which should give you the minimum number of clicks that you can expect. You should calculate that on a per product basis. So if you have multiple products in a campaign together, then you're probably going to need to average whichever those ASINs are showing the ads the most, whatever the conversion rate is for the average across those, or even a weighted average, if you want to get really technical, across the ASINs that are in that campaign. This is going to help you simply avoid future unnecessary clicks. One of the biggest challenges of managing my own ads for my own product line or for a client is going to be making sure that we don't get hit with death by 1,000 cuts. If you've heard that before, it's kind of like if you're running through tall weeds and tall brush and you just constantly just get scraped all the time. You're just bleeding all over the place. So much so that you die. I know, pretty kind of a graphic representation for something technical like this. But what you'll find is you'll get, especially if you're targeting a lot of different keywords, for instance, that produce a lot of different search terms, then what you can end up happening is you've got 1 click, 2 clicks here and there across hundreds of different keywords or hundreds of different search terms. And all that adds up really fast. And so you really need to check a couple different things. I'm going to walk you through how to catch some of those other ones that don't show up on the 5-click minimum or 8-click minimum or the calculated minimum number of clicks for search terms, keywords, or ASINs. Let's move forward. Low potential search terms and keywords. So low potential search terms is exactly what I'm talking about as far as the death by 1,000 cuts. This is where you're going to have certain search terms that come up that have a low relevance. In other words, they have a very low click-through rate. So in this case, what we're doing, and I probably should have put a number in there, is I'm looking for those that have a click-through rate below, let's say, normally what I would expect is to have a minimum of a 0.2% click-through rate, right? And so what I want to do is I'm going to look for those who have below that number, and maybe, for instance, even in the first 500 or 600 impressions, it's only getting 1 click. That's essentially that's saying is like, look, Amazon has shown it a few hundred times, it's shown your ad, and yet only 1 person has chosen to click on it. Meaning the audience is, Amazon's willing to show the ad, but the audience is saying, you know what, this ad is not relevant to my to what I'm searching for. One step, of course, is to simply just say, okay, anything that has has a too low of a click-through rate, maybe has not reached, or definitely has not reached yet, the 5 to 8 minimum number of clicks that says, hey, this is not a converting keyword or a converting search term in this case, but something that has at least probably 500 or 600 impressions and yet has only gotten maybe 1 click. That is showing that the shoppers don't consider it relevant to the ad. The ad is not relevant to what they're searching for. Here's a pro tip. in addition to blocking that search term, doing a negative keyword, negative exact match keyword on that particular search term to block it from running ads again, so that it doesn't just continue to, in other words, it's not really costing you much, but it is definitely going to, it's not targeting the audience you're going for. So this is more about focusing your ads into who your target audience is. But the key thing on this, the pro tip on this, the cheat, if you will, is to take that search term, go out to Amazon and actually search in the marketplace that you're advertising to. You are going to search and see the results and say, okay, the products that come back on the first couple of pages, are they directly relevant to the product that I am promoting, that I am selling? What you'll probably find is, if they're most likely they're not. Most likely it's probably a mix of maybe your product and maybe some other product that uses the same search term, but you didn't realize that maybe there was some overlap there. Two is, it could be that the products that are coming back for the search term that that came up in the ad is actually, there's some variation about the product. Usually it's the price. Let's say you sell a $20 product and everything that comes back on page 1 is $9, $10, right? That particular search term, for whatever reason, Amazon really only wants to show it to people who are looking for the discount product, for the cheap product. And therefore, Amazon is making the mistake of showing your ad to an audience that's not ready to purchase your $20 product, unless you can do what my other videos talk about, and that is to really amplify how your product stands out, really stands out from not only capturing the eye of the shopper, but also making sure that the compelling benefit to the end user, to the shopper, is right up front in the first 80 characters of the title, right up front in the bullet points, right up front in the A+ content, especially for those mobile shoppers, so that they can understand, it's like, oh, I do actually want to spend $20, even though I came in looking for the cheapest product. I'm going to buy the $20 product, your product, because obviously they're speaking my language. They're telling me what the benefit is. I can understand. I don't have to work to understand what the benefit of this product is. But you've got to go through, either whether it's your own brand or you're working for somebody else, working for a client, you've got to go through and double check some of those search terms that are just not converting well, or are not getting a click through well, in order to see, maybe I'm just missing my target audience. Maybe it's a mix of different products. Maybe I'm outside of the price range that Amazon wants to show to that type of discount seeking shopper. Broken search terms is a term for when we overstep our bounds. In other words, we over optimize. Maybe we have both a singular and a plural version of a search term, and we read the data quickly, especially if we're using software. A very common mistake is we can use the we can use the data in order to say, okay, this singular form of search term, let's say it's blue suede shoe, for instance, and that one is not converting well, and it's just costing me a bunch of money. And so I'm going to put in a negative keyword in order to block that search term from showing up. And the mistake, of course, is that Amazon commingles or interchanges the singular and plural forms of search terms, meaning maybe if you had blue suede shoes, the plural, that one is actually converting quite well. And when you tried to block the singular version because it wasn't converting, you also blocked the plural version of that, the one that was converting. In other words, you overstepped, you went a little too far on optimization and made a mistake. So you want to go back through periodically and check for search terms that have been historically converting, but now all of a sudden recently are not converting, because that probably is a signal to you that, whoops, maybe I blocked that search term by accident and I need to bring it back. You're evaluating at that point and saying, okay, what's the greater good or the greater evil here? Do I keep both, or do I block both? What's the cost? If one variation, singular, in this example, let's say the singular is costing you $100 in ad spend, of course, and not converting, of course, you're going to block it. That's way too much, right? If the plural is converting at a high rate, but it's only converting, for $20 in sales, that's not going to outweigh the $100 spend. And so unfortunately, even though you've got a good converting keyword, Amazon does not let you isolate it to say only show the plural form of this keyword or this search term. You've got to either keep both or you've got to remove both. Similar to what we saw with code 1, 2, and 3, now we go back through it again, but now we look at a keyword level. This is a more of a macro level. So we're taking it up. A keyword, of course, can have multiple search terms that can contribute to it, even an exact match, which logically we would say, oh, an exact match should only have one search term to one keyword. No, it doesn't actually work that way because of things like plurals and conjunctions and prepositions and all these other filler words and connecting words and, or, with, the, for, all these things that Amazon likes to eliminate. It can come back. I've seen an exact match keyword come back with a dozen different search terms that contributed to it. And not all those search terms were converting well. So you do want to make sure that, but if you identify this is a great way to block a lot of extra search terms showing up in the future so that you don't have to do steps 1 through 3 again. And of course, you just go back and do this again with the keywords. So with the keywords, similar to the zero sales search terms, you're looking for those keywords that have reached the minimum number of clicks. Again, I suggest that you calculate it based off of the conversion rate of the product, 1 divided by whatever the conversion rate is. So 1 divided by 20%, for instance, equals 5 minimum clicks before you choose to block that keyword or the search term, as in code 1. That's going to be statistically significant enough in order to say, you know what? I'm not going to just let this continue to run and just hope. I'm not going to gamble with my money, with my client's money, and hope that it's going to convert. I'm going to focus my attention more on what do I know what's working, and therefore I'm going to amplify what is working rather than trying to chase ad spend as a test, and I'm spending money that doesn't really belong to me. So that is what you're going to do on keywords. Same thing happens without low potential keywords. If you see something with a very low click-through rate, below the 0.2%, like let's say even like a 0.05% I've seen, where you get, several hundred, let's say you get 500 or 600 impressions on a keyword, and yet that entire keyword maybe only gets 1 click. Again, that's similar to what I was talking about before as far as the search term. Search on Amazon, check to see, okay, maybe it's bringing back other products that are not directly related to the product that you're selling. Maybe it is bringing back a different price point. Maybe there's something else that is not compelling. This can also happen both for search terms and for keywords. This can also happen if you have a brand new product that doesn't have any social proof. And so the social proof is going to be 0 reviews, for instance, right? Maybe it's a brand new product launch, you got 0 reviews. Shoppers may be hesitant to click through to a product listing because nobody else has taken that risk before them. A lot of times they don't want to take that, be the first one, right? For those of you who are not aware, and this is something whether you're doing it for yourself or for a client, Canopy does offer a free growth plan. We typically work with larger brands, more established, and we've got a great track record as far as doubling sales, doubling conversion rate, increasing profitability considerably for our clients. But we do offer a growth plan analysis for brands selling on Amazon, and we'd be glad to do that for you. You can get that for your brand at bit.ly/grow Amazon. And I will go ahead and just type that into the chat here for you, so it makes it easy for you to click on. But definitely, this is a great way. Just out of curiosity, of those who are in the room here, how many of you, tell me, are you for, put the word brand if it's your own product, your own brand, or if you are coaching or working for a client or an employer, put in client in there. I'm kind of curious as far as who all I'm speaking with here. All right, very cool, very cool. Yeah, so the reason I bring up the whole growth plan thing, and I'll move on here to code 6 here, is the growth plan is a great way to get a second opinion from an organization like Canopy Management that has a very strong track record and works with a lot of different clients and does quite a bit of revenue on Amazon, to get our perspective of what is it that can be improved about the advertising, about the product listings, about the position among the competitors, and what you should be seeing as far as growth in your product niche. Our team has got this process dialed down very well. We don't use software. I'll do it by hand. But it is definitely something I'd recommend if you haven't already gotten that from us. All right, so code number 6. This is where you're talking about keywords that have done some kind of conversion, but maybe they're not doing so well. Maybe you're running into, especially this year, with the drop in conversion rates and in traffic. There's a number of reasons for that, and I can go into that during the Q&A, during the Ask Me Anything session behind this. And that is, you're going to have keywords that, of course, have over 100% ACoS. In other words, over 100% advertising cost of sale. And that's fine during a launch because Amazon hasn't learned to trust your campaign. They're not giving you the best traffic. You really haven't dialed in as far as the steps 1 through 5, as far as reducing the number of search terms and keywords that are not directly relevant to a conversion for your product. You got to eliminate some of that garbage and spend a certain amount of money in testing. You don't want to spend a huge amount of money, but you want to try to limit it as quickly as possible by paying attention to those first 5 steps during on a weekly basis. Okay, this one, all of these 10 you want to do on a weekly basis, but this one is more for unprofitable keywords that have over 100% ACoS. I typically, those are going to be converting, but it's going to teach you a couple things. One is, okay, it's not profitable. And so I want to, by default, I would say, let's reduce the bid. Or sometimes it's a case you've got to reduce the placement, or you've got to change the campaign bidding strategy, the fixed up and down only. But generally, starting out with simply adjusting the bid, if you haven't implemented these other things, you're going to want to reduce that. Probably, if it's 100%, I would say probably drop that down by a good 30%, just to see if you can jump down or fall down to the next shelf. What's a shelf, you say? So a shelf is where you get a group of competing advertisers who are all bidding very similar. And if you get just below that bid, all of a sudden it drops way down. So you don't necessarily want to cut your bid in half. You simply want to drop it down 20, 30% maybe from where it's at currently, and test to see, okay, did my cost per click significantly drop because I just got below this shelf, the sticking point of a few competitors who are all bidding about the same thing? Simply just dropping it down to 5 cents or, a few pennies, something like that is probably not going to do it. But you don't have to cut it so far that you're eliminating the keyword from visibility entirely. You just want to see, can I get down to the next layer of cost per click to make it more affordable? If that means that it jumps down to a 60, 70% ACoS, that still may not be profitable. But if you only made a 10-cent drop, for instance, or a 10, 20% drop in your bid, that may have produced a lot better value than, or a lot better result than what you're expecting to just simply eliminate the keyword altogether. You can make it work at that point. Now, let's say, for instance, you've got, there's a couple of reasons why I continue to run keywords above 100%. First and foremost is if I put them into a protected campaign. Some of you may know is that I produced the course for 4 years called Sponsored Products Academy. It was 3 different versions across 4 years. And one of the things that there's a couple of tactics that I talk about, and I still have videos on my YouTube channel that you can check out. And that has to do with things like the gold panning strategy. This, by far, if you do nothing else, you've got to check out my YouTube channel for this gold panning strategy. And no, I don't have the link off the top of my head for you right here. But if you go out to YouTube, search for Brian Johnson or Brian R. Johnson, look for gold panning strategy. And that video is, you absolutely should be bringing that in. The short version of that is a low bid campaign for automatic, for keywords, for products that you run in addition to your other advertising campaigns in order to get some very low, typically single digit ACoS for a little bit of additional sales. It's not going to make or break your brand, but it's certainly going to add to the profitability of your brand. So I'm going to throw that one in as an additional strategy that is not listed on our top 10 cheat codes here. But one of the things, aside from running a keyword in a protected campaign, and I actually label it protected so that I know that I'm specifically trying to rank for that keyword. In other words, I'm willing to spend extra dollars because I know that particular keyword that I'm putting more ad dollars behind is a bit weak among my competitors. In other words, some of my competitors do rank well for it. Some of my competitors do not rank well for it. And I'm trying to pass up through ad spend those that don't rank well and try to join that group of those that do rank. Because ultimately what I'm trying to see is, can I get this keyword, even though it costs me an arm and a leg, it costs me a lot, it's unprofitable from an advertising standpoint, but if it pushes that product onto page 1 or page 2 and picks up some additional organic sales as a result of that keyword push that I did with the advertising, then that's going to change as far as my the total advertising cost of sales. Some call it tacos. It's just the ratio between your ad spend and your overall sales. And so there is a benefit. There's a strategy of overspending on just a handful, just a few keywords that are running above 100% ACoS so that you can move up your sales velocity for certain keywords for your products, so you can get ahead of some of your weaker competitors and maybe get to page 1 or page 2 and get some organic sales from that. So I'm not going to beat that one to death too much. Let's say, for instance, you've got, let's jump to code 7 here. And that is, let's say you're in that 50% to 100% ACoS. Those I typically, same principles go as far as there still may be a bid shelf there. You still may be wanting to go aggressive on that keyword. And this is just happened what, it may be a protected keyword for ranking, of course, but generally on this one, I take smaller reductions in the keyword bid. I will change the keyword bid. Maybe let's say it is, I'll drop it maybe 10, 20%, right? And you'll see, of course, if it's somewhere around break even unprofitable, in other words, it is at your break even bid or break even ACoS or higher, up to 50%, then I might even do like a 5%. I'm doing very small changes to just try to tune it in over the coming weeks. On both of the 50% to 100%, as well as the break even unprofitable. And let me take a step back here. So I'm not sure as far as how many of you are following me as far as what is considered to be break even unprofitable, because those are kind of contradicting terms. What I'm suggesting here is break even to unprofitable, which would be whatever ACoS at that particular product's conversion rate and net profit margin state is going to be profitable or unprofitable. You should be calculating that number for your brand or for your client's brand for each product, so that you know what the exact net profit margin is for each product, what the conversion rate is for each product, and therefore you should be able to determine what percentage ACoS is actually break even for that specific product, and then take that back to the keyword that is running an ad for that product and matching up, okay, this keyword is running break even because I've calculated that my net profit margin percentage for this product is 30%. Therefore, my break even ACoS for each keyword is 30%. I can go into a whole other advanced strategy on this. So if you want to know more on that, then hit me up during the Q&A here at the end here. We're getting close to being done here anyway. But this is usually kind of a sweet spot where you are trying to maintain, you don't always want to maintain below ACoS. Yes, you can say, okay, it's profitable, I'm not overspending, and you can kind of walk away from it, from the ads. You say, okay, they're kind of running on autopilot because they're approximately break even. I'm not really making a whole lot of money. It's just doing something because I'm told to run ads. That, first and foremost, is not a good strategy for running ads. You really should have a purpose behind why you are running ads. Either you're launching a product and you're trying to get visibility, right? How many people are trying to get visibility, right? You are trying to improve the sales velocity for a keyword so that a product ranks higher. So let's say you're trying to do, so I don't know how many of you, maybe put in chat, are trying to go after keyword ranking. It could be that you're simply just trying to show your boss or show your client what is, hey, you know what, I'm generating this amount of sales on Amazon, so keep me employed. That is while that's reasonable, that only lasts so long, because they ultimately are going to, and you should expect of yourself, is you wanted that to continue to grow year over year. If you're not doubling in sales year over year, then you're probably behind the curve. Now, I say that based off of the standard that Canopy Management has set in the industry as far as doubling sales year over year for our clients. Sometimes, if you run out of stock, or you run into COVID restrictions, or whatever the case is, you may not hit that number. But those are external factors of what you normally should be doing in order to take over market share, to become a category king in your product niche. If you're aggressive enough, you should be able to do that year over year. I realize that not every brand, in fact, most brands don't hit that. In fact, I think Amazon suggests that the most successful brands do something, I think it's like in the 35 to 45% growth year over year, for a consistently growing brand that is adding on new products, continuing to update their marketing, continuing to update their product listings. And if you know who you are, if you created a product listing 5 years ago or 2 years ago, and you've never made any changes to it, you haven't done any A/B split testing, well, that's your own fault, because you can do a lot better with that. Again, that's a Q&A question I can definitely go into. But you should be trying to figure out exactly what it is you're doing with your advertising, so that you understand. Ultimately, what I like to do is I like to get, and I'm going to steal the terminology for this from a friend of mine, but it's the contribution of profitability. So if you look at it from a standpoint of, if I've got a product that I am advertising for, and maybe I've got a few products, for instance. If I've got one product, obviously everything that any sale that it does, any profitability it does, is 100% contribution of profitability, contribution of sales. But ultimately, I always want to go back if I've got multiple products, and I want to focus my ads on those products that have an above average conversion rate. A lot of times we don't see that, because we're always so hyper focused on what is the product that is the hero product that sells the most, and we forget to look at the other products that have maybe they just have very low sessions, even though they may have a conversion rate that is 2 to 3 times the hero product. In other words, they've got all the potential in the world if you would just spend more time getting them in front of your target audience by throwing some more ad dollars at those underutilized, underseen products that might be in your portfolio. But ultimately, if I'm continuing to advertise across a spread of products, I need to go back and make sure, am I advertising the right product? Should I be advertising every product that I have, or are there some that I need to eliminate because either they've got a lousy conversion rate, assuming it's not a new product that doesn't have social proof, maybe they've got a bad conversion rate, maybe it is maybe that particular product has a very slim margin because sourcing costs have gone up and it's become, you're down to 10% profit margin. That's going to be hard to fight for. That's going to be hard to really see how much is this product contributing to the overall profitability of all the ad campaigns and all of the product sales, both organic and sponsored, in my brand, in my portfolio on Amazon. So it's not as simple as just doing keyword bid adjustments. That's the minimum viable thing that you should be doing. If you haven't done it, then that's the starting point. That's why I'm going back through the basics today on these 10 cheat codes. Okay. But I'm obviously adding in a lot of flavor and pro tips as far as how we do it, so that you can kind of learn between the slides. So it's not on the bullet points. Everything I'm saying that's not on the bullet points, you probably want to be taking notes on. It's similar to what I was talking about before, as far as the broken search terms, broken keywords can certainly happen. Same kind of concept. You want to go back periodically, maybe it's on a monthly basis, and say, okay, you know what? Let me go back and look at all of the search terms and keywords that were previously converting, and maybe should have been, maybe even converting pretty well, but look at everything that was converting. And then recognize when you have some keywords or search terms that suddenly stopped converting, because it was probably at that time that you over optimized in your weekly optimization for search terms or keywords, or even products is the last one. and you may want to restart those ads because it was simply over optimized. The example I gave before, and I realize our audience has grown consistently throughout this this session here, so I think everybody's joining the end to join into the Ask Me Anything, which is kind of cool. But this is where you are. What was I going to say? Well, sorry, I lost my train of thought on that one. This is where you're going back and as far as the broken search terms and broken keywords, this is where you're going back and you're restarting search terms and keyword ads that maybe should have continued to sell, but you over optimize it because the example that I gave before, which was as simple as the singular versus plural search term or singular versus plural keyword in the same campaign, Amazon is going to commingle those. And so if you block with a negative keyword, the singular, it's going to block the plural and vice versa. So you need to determine from that, are you going to keep either both search terms or both keywords, or are you going to block both search terms or both keywords? All right, final one as far as the PPC cheat code number 10. This has to do with zero sale ASINs. These can be from sponsored product automatic campaigns. They can be, as ASINs that show up as search terms. It can be from product targeting ads, could be category targeting ads. It can be across other any of the product targeting or category targeting ads that show an ASIN as being attributed as far as the click-through, where that traffic clicked through on an ad or came through to a competitor product listing, maybe you were targeting, or the automatic campaign was targeting, and then they saw your ad and they clicked through to you. That's simply just a handoff from where it came. And just like search terms, just like keywords, you're going to have those ASINs that simply don't convert. A lot of times what we see most commonly is that those are the ASINs that are for a product that is the 800-pound gorilla. They've got a slightly better price. They've got way more social proof. They've actually optimized and updated their product listings in the last 6 months. Those are the ones that are most likely going to beat you because they continue to craft the messaging to focus on the benefits to the shopper. They're doing A/B split testing because in order to grab the attention with the main image of the shopper's eye. These are all things that I teach, of course, again, throwing it over to my YouTube channel. These are the things that I teach in the search and rescue techniques that I talk about there. So the two big videos that I've been recommending here on my YouTube channel, just search on YouTube for Brian Johnson, Amazon or Amazon PPC, and you'll find my channel. But the two videos there are going to be, one is the gold panning. Okay. So gold panning, and then search and rescue. Search and rescue, put those in the chat there. Those are two great videos that have become, the gold panning one has become timeless, and you'll appreciate it once you actually go through the video and see why that is. Search and rescue is more about product listing optimization and split testing of your main image, your title, your bullet points, continually doing that every 6 months, so you're constantly evolving your product listing to focus your messaging to your target audience, increase conversion rate, and ultimately start dominating your product niche. Appreciate that, John. Thanks. All right, one last thing here, then we'll jump into the Ask Me Anything, and I'll open it up. And so if you want to start putting your questions into the chat, then I'm surprised at how much this group has just continued to grow throughout this whole thing. But if you want to throw in your questions into the chat while I give this sponsored reminder here, that way I can start addressing it. Or if you've got certain topics, whether it's advertising, conversion rate optimization, those are my two superpowers on Amazon. But I can also talk, because I also own my own and sell my own brands and products on Amazon as well. If you got something else on Amazon you want to just throw out there, fire away into the group chat here. But in the meantime, don't forget is get a second opinion about how you are managing your brand or your client's brand by getting a growth plan done by a professional agency like Canopy Management. Well, specifically Canopy Management, the agency that I co-founded, we do a free growth plan, and it is phenomenal. We have a great data and research team, and we will literally go in and we'll say, here's where you're doing great, here's where you're screwing it up, here's what you need to do if you're going to want to try to double in the next year. Doesn't mean you have to hire us. In fact, you probably, you may not even qualify to even work with us, but we're still going to give you the feedback so that you can go in and, so that you can go in and get that information and actually apply what you've learned from an organization like Canopy that, again, we manage over $1 billion a year in Amazon sales. And so we have got a lot of different aspects as far as like, we know what we're doing. And so we do want to share that with us. That is kind of a free service that we provide to the community. So you can get that out at bit.ly/grow Amazon. And I'll put that into the chat there. Like I said, great way to get some additional input on this. If it happens to be a good fit to work with Canopy and work with our team, awesome. We'll have that conversation. If not, take the information and run and implement it yourself. All right. This is the Ask Me Anything. Go ahead and add your questions again into the chat. Do you work also in the EU market? Yes, we actually are a global organization. The one I think that we don't do as well on, in other words, we don't have as many clients on, is Japan. That one's kind of its own little unique nut in the world. I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm just saying is that culturally, we don't have any of our staff that are located in Japan. And that's something that's important to us. That's one of the reasons why we've got over 100 staff in our organization is we try to have people across. I think we're probably at least in a dozen different countries. We probably have 8 to 10 different languages. And so we try to line up our ad teams along with for cultural relevance. But yes, in the European Union, in UK, we also, we have not only teams there, both ad teams and creative teams there, but we do manage accounts. Yeah, pretty much in every marketplace as far as I know. Good question. My email is not a secret in the world. It's pretty simple. It's brian@canopymanagement.com. That comes to me. Okay. I am co-founder. And so, yeah. Track down that. Is everybody part of my Amazon PPC troubleshooting community on Facebook? Give me a 0 if you're not. So this first one here. So this is the Facebook community. We've got over 22,000 sellers in this group. That is the Amazon PPC troubleshooting community. We only talk about advertising. I mean, I do talk about conversion rate optimization and stuff now, but yeah, it's a pretty focused group. So it's not just a general group. The YouTube channel that I was going on about here. All right. Here's the link to my YouTube channel. That way you can check out, again, the gold panning strategy and also the search and rescue. If you have not seen those before, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you check those out because those will both open up some eyes and some opportunity for you. Let's see, Neil. So you said we're close to launching our first product, so PPC is like another language for us. I completely understand that. Where do you recommend to go to learn the absolute basics? Well, what I covered today is actually the absolute basics, and so we're going to announce here. I think next week we're going to be sending out the actual PDF of what I talked about today, and it's pretty cool. It's a bit retro. It's got a really cool design, so we've updated it. But there's a number of resources that you'll find. If you are part of that Facebook group, the Amazon PPC troubleshooting group, there are resources in the top of that. In fact, these are a couple of great resources, Neil, that you should check out. The 10 steps, which is the previous version of what I'm teaching today, and then we're going to be releasing a new updated version this week. And then the more comprehensive is going to be the 17-step Leaf ad management process. It was a poster. I think it's like a PDF now because shipping became a problematic during COVID. I do, of course, have Sponsored Products Academy, but there are, you can certainly follow some of the videos that I do in the YouTube channel. I am also good friends with Sean Smith with AMZ PPC or AMS PPC Accelerator. He continues to do coaching primarily, and then he also has his own accelerator course, so that helps as well. Daniel, you're asking, okay, so when launching a product and you have these relevant keywords that just won't start spending with sponsored product ads. What is your procedure with these? Okay, so here's let me break this down a little bit. That is a great question. So in fact, let me go ahead and stop the share here. That way you can I can expand out the chat here a little bit better. And for those of you who just joined, we've gotten into we've already gone through as far as the 10 PPC cheat codes, as far as the most essential steps. We'll send out another announcement to all of everybody who registered here about how to get a hold of the PDF. It's going to be a free PDF, whole 10-step checklist and everything. So we're updating it. It's pretty cool. It's one of those kind you want to print out because it's got some great retro video game design to it. So, but to answer your question, Daniel, there's a couple of things that I would typically look at when you're launching a product. You typically have a brand new campaign, correct? You probably have less than a keyword campaign, for instance, that's less than a couple of weeks old. And assuming that is true, then Amazon doesn't trust you. They don't trust your campaigns. And so they are going to, the way that the ad auction works, and the ad auction is a lot more complex than what a lot of people believe. But it goes through a series of filters and bid adjustments and setting up its own campaign quality score in order to come up with a final number that it then uses to filter and to sort the ads that they're actually going to run. So I'm not going to go into great detail as far as how this works here because it's a pretty lengthy explanation. But the short version of this is that if you have a brand new keyword campaign, Amazon is going to distrust it. And part of it, the ad auction, is to automatically reduce your bid. If you're using a campaign bidding strategy of up and down or down only, those 2 out of 3 campaign bidding strategies for a sponsored product keyword campaign, for instance, then because Amazon doesn't trust your campaign because it's new, you've got a new unproven product, and you are, what it's going to do is it's going to take your default bid. Let's say you bid $5, right? You said, I put $1,000 budget, which don't ever do. And I put a $5 bid, which I still wouldn't do, thinking that was going to overcome any competitors, and your ads are not even showing. In other words, you're getting few to even 0 impressions in your ad. That's the key point on this particular one, is if you're getting very few to 0 impressions on a campaign, on a keyword campaign, then you are probably having your bid discounted by the ad auction as untrustworthy, and because your bid gets automatically dropped or reduced by the ad auction, it's going to consider it no longer competitive among the top bidders who are more established in your niche, and therefore you won't even make it to the starting line. Your ad will not show. Okay, and so that the symptom of that is your campaign would have 0 impressions or very few impressions. Very light as far as impressions. That's a distrust factor. Here's how you solve that: switch your campaign bidding strategy to fixed bid for the first 2 weeks, or for the next 2 weeks if you're starting now. Try that, and I will bet that you start getting your impressions. After the first 2 weeks, because essentially what you're doing is you're taking the control away from Amazon to reduce your bid and say, no, keep my bid here. I'm putting in a competitive bid. Don't fall for the myth that you can put in a low bid and then put in a really high placement percentage, and that Amazon's going to double or triple your bid in order to show your ad first place. Because what happens is that because you put in a low bid, you got eliminated before it considered whether or not it would adjust it for placement, which is one of the last steps that it does. And so there's 2 or 3 different opportunities for Amazon to reduce your bid and to eliminate you from the running in the first place before they even consider whether or not you've amplified your bid through, like say, top of search placement, for instance. So hopefully that kind of nailed it for you. If you are getting impressions, the other aspect is that maybe your campaign has been getting impressions, but only a handful. Maybe let's say for instance, you're bidding on 100 keywords and only 10 or 20 of them are actually getting impressions. That's very common. What I would recommend doing is move all your keywords to test this. Move all your keywords that are getting 0 impressions from that campaign. Move them all into a new campaign. and see which ones then Amazon then looks at. You don't want to copy the ones that are already getting impressions or clicks. You only want to copy over the keywords that are not getting any impressions, move those into a new campaign and test again. A lot of times Amazon is looking at the relevance. Maybe your listing is not optimized for those target keywords, and they're not seeing the relevance of the keyword you're trying to target to what is listed in your content of your product listing, front and back. And there's a lot of places to put keywords in your content. I'm going to butcher your name, so I would appreciate if you tell me the correct one, because I do want to get it correct. Usually I try to check this ahead of time, but I'm going to go with Rajni. Is that, hopefully that's correct? Hopefully I'm ballpark. Would you recommend a launch without reviews? I do, yeah, because that's the only way that I ever launch products. The one thing that I do make sure that I do is I've got to nail my launch product listing SEO, my product listing optimization. I've got to nail that right up front. I also want to, I'm going to run ads, but I know my ads are going to be very inefficient. They're going to be expensive until I've got a certain amount of social proof. Yes, I will use things like Amazon's Vine program in order to get 5 reviews, but those 5 reviews typically take me 3 to 5 months to get. It's ridiculous how slow that is. So a lot of times I'm trying to do my own promotions off of Amazon. If I've got a product that hasn't converted or has a very low conversion rate, that's going to make it problematic for me to run Google ads, Facebook ads, TikTok ads, anything like that. But it doesn't mean that I can't go out there and start a conversation with my target audience on Instagram, on TikTok, on Reddit, whatever the case is. And then if you get to the point where somebody says, you know, I'm frustrated, I can't find this, you're going, it's like, well, I actually solve this, or I'm working on solving this problem. Can you tell me more about what it is? You'll get a number of people who be like, hey, let me know when you launch. And then you can actually let them know when you launch and say, oh, I need your feedback to tell me, not your review. I want your direct feedback to say, did I get this right? Did I solve the problem that you were saying that you were hoping I would solve? But yes, I do recommend launching without reviews. Just understand is that your advertising is going to be pretty inefficient, and advertising is only one lever that you should be pulling. You should absolutely be dumping a whole lot of time into your initial product listing optimization, making sure that you get brand registered so that you can use A+ content, so that you can get indexed for as wide number of keyword phrases as you can, so that you can get a wide range of visibility for your product. Adrian. All right. So Adrian, I think lowering the bids kills your ads sometimes. Sure. This happened once with a freelancer I had, and it's weird, but lowering bids raises a cost in many cases. It can, based off of what I was talking about before, as far as some of those shelves, the competitor shelves, where you get a number of competitors who bunch up together with similar bidding. And once you drop slightly down below that, then all of a sudden your CPC drops down, but then maybe you're not in the top 5 as far as ads being shown. Usually, depending on how competitive a product niche is, I'm going to do a couple different things. One is I'm going to try to dial in a sweet spot as far as my bidding. I will then try to test after the fact, not ahead of time. I will try to test to see, does top of search placement of say 30% to 50%, does that give me any advantage on top of a competitive bid already? Okay, so I don't soften my bid and then add on a top of search placement. I keep a competitive bid and then add on top of that a 30 to 50% top of search placement. And I test it to see, does that work for my product, for the keywords I'm targeting, for the ASINs that I'm targeting, for instance. It may or may not. A 70-cent bid in most categories is probably soft. That would be literally what I would talk about in the gold panning campaign these days as a low bid. In other words, a non-competitive bid. So unless you're in a niche that is pretty weak as far as competition, and you're normally seeing CPCs in the 50 cent to $1, 70 cent would get you by. But I would say that 70 cent would probably, what happens when you drop your bid too low is then your ads start showing on page 5, on page 10, on page 20. So you can get additional clicks, you can get additional sales, but if somebody has surfed through 10, 20 different pages to finally click through to your ad, they probably are not really committed to making a purchase. So it can work, but you can also run into cases where people go into analysis, paralysis by analysis, and they simply are not making a decision either. One of the ways that I work around this one is, Adrian, I'll go through and I'll take a look at what are the keywords that are most competitive. Okay. Those are typically going to be the ones that have the highest cost per click. Oftentimes those correlate to whatever some keyword research tool tells me is the highest search volume, because everybody likes to gravitate toward high search volume without actually thinking it through, actually really doing good keyword research. And so everybody will bid aggressively on everything that the keyword research tool says is a high search volume keyword. And then they're surprised when they get really high cost per clicks that don't convert. It's because they didn't do their job properly. You are going to have some keywords that simply that are going to hit a shelf and they're going to drop dramatically, and you may not get the visibility at all. You may have to support a keyword ranking by bidding over what is break even, including 120% ACoS, if that's what it takes, if that helps you to gain or to maintain a specific keyword, a high keyword ranking for your product. Usually it has to be fairly weak competition for that to be very effective. But my last thought on this is taking a look at the keywords. In other words, especially with a new product, don't go head to head with the 800-pound gorillas in your niche. If you're trying to, what I'm looking for is, and there's tools like Seller Tools and Helium 10 Cerebro, and some of these, Data Dive does this very well, is you go through and you can find what does your product rank for keywords compared to where your most admired competitors rank for in their keywords. And what you'll find is certain keywords that are directly relevant to your product and doesn't have somebody else's brand name, right? Or it doesn't mean a completely different product. So it's directly relevant to your product still. But you're going to have where certain highly competitive keywords where your top 10 competitors, they all rank on page 1, page 2 for that keyword. You'll find later on some of the lower search volume, some of the less competitive keywords, you're going to have competitors that rank on page 1 for it. And then your other, the other 5, top 10 competitors, they don't even rank on page, 4 or 5 for those keywords. Those become opportunities for you to potentially pass up those who are poorly ranked for a minor keyword that you can then run your ads, get some impressions, get some track record with Amazon, get some sales, get some additional ranking, and then build on that as a foundation and keep on stepping it up to more and more aggressive, more and more competitive keywords that you can build on over time. But you've got to make sure that you're dialing in your product listing content to maximize the number of keywords that are indexed through all the different content fields, and your messaging is on point to be most compelling as far as benefits to that shopper. Hopefully that helps. The other example you were talking about is sometimes when you bid higher. We see this quite a bit sometimes with top of search is we've got ads that we currently run aggressively on top of search, where we literally have a cost per click over $10. Literally over $10 for a cost per click. But the conversion rate is such that it is, 70, 80% conversion rate. And so what ends up happening is our ACoS comes in at break even. And so there are, that's kind of a risky thing to test, right? But that does happen. It does certainly support, Adrian, what you're talking about is sometimes you bid too low and the ACoS goes south, and you bid a little higher and you can dial in a better ACoS, even though it might not be competitive. And that has to do with maybe when Amazon chooses to show your ad. Part of that has to do with campaign trust also. So get lower impressions. Okay, so I kind of answered your other question there. Yep. All right. Oh, so KDP. Okay, so with KDP, yeah, normal with a 70-cent bid. Yeah, they've definitely risen over the past year. And there's specific reasons for that. I've discussed it on previous live workshops, but there's definitely reasons as far as why the CPCs have gone up for most niches on Amazon. How much, Rajni, how much revenue would you recommend before approaching an agency like yourselves? I would recommend, so you can have that conversation, get that growth plan that we were talking about, the bit.ly slash grow, what is it? Grow, sorry, I closed out the other screen. So grow Amazon. Okay, that's brilliant. You can still have that conversation and get that growth plan done. Generally, in order to qualify to work with us, there's a number of things. It's not simply just or it's not just overall sales, but generally, like for instance, for Canopy, because we're at the top of our game and we've got such a massive track record, is we typically start working with brands that are selling at least 30,000 per month or higher in overall revenue. Now, if you're doing a lot more than that on, a Shopify or eBay or some other channel, then yeah, obviously we'd make an exception on that. But yeah, that's generally our starting point where it makes sense. There's definitely other factors that are involved on that where we might make an exception, but at least start that conversation to see like, okay, how do I, give me the growth plan so that I can get to the minimum cutoff so I can start working with an agency like Canopy. So there's logic in that, right? Let's see here. Nathan. Okay. Is it still a viable strategy to run a week or two of PPC on a set of keywords at 50 cents to generate initial data on a new launch? So at 50 cents, that's what I would probably call my gold panning campaign. That's something I would just keep running for life. Okay. Then I would have a separate campaign with a more aggressive bid. The set of keywords that I would initially launch with is probably going to be in the 10 to 20 range, highly relevant, highly focused, mostly just in order to make sure that it lines up with whatever I've set up the SEO or the listing content to make sure I'm dialed in. So I would be advertising heavily on the same keyword phrases that are in my title, for instance, and and then secondarily the bullet points and then of course the A+ content. As far as generating initial data, usually I'm using a variety of keyword research tools in order to do a lot of that research before I even launch. Part of that is I'm also going out there to social media and listening to my target audience to hear what are some of their complaints about similar products or competitor products or things in the same niche. I'll also go through and read all my competitor reviews in order to see where the strengths and weaknesses, so that I'm making sure that I'm dialing in my product listing content to speak to the needs and the benefits, needs of and the benefits to the shopper. So that way my message resonates with, hey, you know what, we've solved your problem. This is absolutely the product you need. Yeah, it's $10 more expensive, but you need it anyway. Yeah, but as far as Nathan, I'd say you're probably, depending on the product niche that you're in, you're probably north of $1.50 now, if you've been off the platform for a while. Which external traffic channel do you use the most? So, I mean, I'll use a mix of, if I'm having a product that's got a really good conversion rate on Amazon, I will add on Google Ads. That's the first one I'll go to. I've tried tools like Amped for the AI-driven Google Ads that with the attribution back to Amazon. And I've proven to myself what I already knew, and that is if I have a product that has a low conversion rate, like something below 10%, don't run external ads. You're just going to lose your money on it. And I proved, yes, in fact, that theory was true. But I've got products, that might have a 30, 40, 50% conversion rate on Amazon, unit session percentage on Amazon, and I'll run external ads. Primarily, I'll start out with Google Ads. I'm also looking at like TikTok ads is up and coming. If you've got an audience that kind of fits a little bit of a younger crowd, it's still a younger crowd. The other external traffic sometimes is I don't like to post links to my product detail page on social media in general. That's a bit too salesy, a little too spam for my comfort level. I like to be able to get into the conversation and actually listen to my target audience and what they're complaining about, ask them questions about it, and simply just say, okay, so what if I might introduce, I say, what if I came to market with something to solve these problems? Would that be enough, or do you really need a solution? Or if I've already introduced a solution, I might come back and say, it's like, I have actually worked on, I heard, here's some of the common things that I've learned from speaking with everybody, and I realized that nobody was solving it. So I went ahead and just solved it. And so I actually do have a product that's coming live soon that I would love to get some feedback on. That's as far as I take it. I don't put up links. I don't say, hey, message me and everything. They'll naturally message you and say, hey, I want that. If they really want it, then they're going to reach out to you. And that's how I'll generate some initial launch sales as well. Oh, Nathan, you're saying 5 cents instead of 50. Yeah, so 5 cents you're not going to get much out of. Even the gold panning strategy, I'd probably say 50 cents would be conservative. Yeah, 5 cents you're not going to. I can't imagine what category, unless it's something like industrial bolt washers or something. I'm kidding, of course, but yeah, I don't even think I've seen a 5 cent CPC in a long time, except unless it's a very, very long tail keyword. Neil, which pricing strategy when launching new products? So great question. So I will typically come in on the low end of what my competitive set is. Okay. I don't want to go so low that my product is considered cheap. I also don't come in retail. Now, there's a couple different ways I can do this. One is I can start out with a large retail price and then have a massive coupon on it, that they can apply. Or I can simply, which some people do, redeem, and that's just kind of a cost of doing business, and most won't. But it doesn't sometimes it doesn't get the attention that it needs. So sometimes simply just having a price point that is at or slightly below the low end of your actual competitive product pricing niche. That usually is something that they'll run for the first probably 3 to 4 weeks, I would guess. I might try to alternate that with other pricing strategies and kind of bump it up, or just start, if I'm trying to get sales, I'll start creeping it up, $1 at a time so I don't trigger any resistance from Amazon. But yeah, that's usually just to kind of get some initial sales velocity and get things moving, especially because Amazon's whining so heavily about long-term storage and that kind of stuff. They're going to get a lot more picky about that this year. Angelica, how do we take advantage of Amazon's search query performance data? So there's a lot of, I've got different theories as far as how to use that. I think it's still very much in its infancy as far as like how to really break it down. In fact, I think, do I still have it open? No, I closed it out. I actually had that open just last night, actually, for my own product, and I was looking at it, and I was kind of, it's similar to what I was talking about before. Is I like to look at where are my competitors ranking at for some of the keywords that are and search terms that are related to my product. They're driving traffic to my product, and see, okay, is there a mix of strong and weak in my competitors as far as whether or not they're ranking and indexing for, that I can then be more aggressive in my advertising, in my listing content, in order to target those specific search terms in order to get an advantage. Because the less resistance you have, it's way easier to move up the organic keyword ranks for keywords that has less resistance, right? It makes sense, but it's a good reminder for a lot of us. I have to remind myself of some of my own best practices, of some of my own agency's best practices. I have to remind myself of my own because I like to take shortcuts too. So I think that's probably a topic, Angelique, that I want to, I'm sorry, Angelica, mispronounced Angelique, Angelica, that I will probably do a separate video on, if you don't mind, because it's going to take a longer longer than what I could answer in a quick quick one here. I would definitely analyze it for your products. But yeah, I'll probably go into a case study, a case example of that, and actually go into it and put it up on my YouTube channel for you. Stay on me about that one to make sure I don't that doesn't slip my mind, because I'm doing it for myself, so I might as well record it. Rajni, I do currently do manual keyword research and have become pretty good at negating keywords to increase ACOS. To increase ACOS or to decrease ACOS, but I have TICA metrics running in the background, doing bid adjustments based on my target ACOS. Okay, I can see how those would conflict. It's a pretty basic automation solution. It doesn't really, the challenge on that, that's one of the reasons why, like my own team, we use fairly little automation, mostly just for efficiency, but not for decision making, because we want to always stay tuned into the target audience. And craft the messaging, the content, the advertising to what we see as far as the target audience. It's not always about the metrics. It's not simply just bid adjustments. That's a little too easy, right? Is this auto bid adjusting important, or can I do without? It depends on if you have a process where you audit their work. I would always audit software in general. I had the same thing with my own software. I would always have an audit process where you're checking on, and the problem is that most brand owners, they get really lazy when it comes to software automation. Is they just assume that the software knows what they're doing, is working in their best interest, understands their target audience, and therefore everything will work out. Paul, maybe yeah, work on your audio there. Sorry, buddy. Quartile is a good example of a train wreck or a great success. You know, you were mentioning as far as like TICA metrics, Karthik was mentioning Quartile, and I've seen the Quartile is a great example of some extreme love and hate. So I've seen brands that have doubled their ad sales because of their using Quartile, and Quartile goes to the extreme of a tactic that I talked about years ago called a solo campaign, where you put a keyword into its own campaign so that you can manage it separately. And the idea behind that is that you should only have maybe 3 to 5 of those solo campaigns, so that it is a very isolated keyword in a campaign that you can then control things separately as far as budget, bidding, placement, campaign bidding strategy, time of day, time of week, all these kind of things, right? And so what Quartile does is it says, oh, you've got 5,000 keywords, let's create 5,000 campaigns. It makes it impossible for you to take it back. And we've seen, we get, I kind of joke. I mean, I'm not trying to bring down Quartile. It's not like that. It's more of a case of, I joke, is that I love Quartile because it is one of the greatest lead generation referrals for our agency compared to any other software. Because it really is a case where if you have a big enough brand for it to make sense to use Quartile, it can either hit and do really well, or it can fail miserably, and you could lose a lot of money. And unfortunately, there's I only hear the extremes. I don't usually hear where it just kind of it worked okay in the middle. I would love to hear more of the stories on that to get a better example. I think that's the case across most software, even my own. I'm more of the school, call it old school if you will, but where you need to have a certain amount of hands-on interpretation of the data, not simply just making any system that is simply just making decisions, whether it is rule-based or AI, or you just marketed it as AI, but they're full of shit because they're not. I've got an opinion on that, obviously, is the challenge that if they're only making decisions off of the metrics, off of the CPC, off of the ACOS, off of the ROAS, these kind of things. If that's all they're doing to align to say that they're managing their ads, they're a fool. They're not doing that. I mean, that's only part of the work that needs to be done. So it really needs to have either oversight by yourself, by a brand owner, somebody on your team that is auditing that software to see, are they actually doing what they're supposed to be doing? Are they actually working towards your best interest, or are they not? never assume that any automation is just magically going to know what's right for your business, for your products, and certainly not for your target audience. You've got to audit it, or otherwise you're going to lose control of it and you're not going to know why. See, I didn't have an opinion about that at all. Yeah, Rajni, as far as the auditing and the campaign creations, I mean, some of them, it makes it nice and convenient to create, to create a bunch of different campaigns. I probably wouldn't do the quartile method, but again, like I said, that one has two extremes. The auditing is more of a case of going through and saying, okay, did they simply just tune everything to focus in on a certain ACOS, or are there certain keywords that you want to intentionally be more aggressive, lose some money, or maybe even lose a lot of money on in order to get some organic ranking benefit? And most software is not smart enough in order to have that flexibility to say, well, here's these exceptions. It's, it should be there. But a lot of times they don't understand your target audience like you do. And therefore, they're going to treat the keywords and the search terms as a metric as opposed to a flavor as part of your marketing effort and your communication and your brand presence in front of your target audience. So don't rely just on the metrics. It's more than that. That probably requires a whole nother video too, just on as far as like, how do I audit my software vendors? You guys are giving me some great ideas today. Let me write these down here real quick. What else we got here? Let's try and wrap this up here, since we're about, gosh, probably we're going over an hour here. The PDF. Yeah, Rajni, so trying to justify staying with them or not. It depends on if you've got a process in order to do it yourself, or if there's other simpler solution where you can see everything that's being done, maybe that's rules based instead of AI based, as an example. You can take a step down. So you've got manual, you have there's essentially 4 different classes. You've got manual, where you're doing everything yourself. You've got where you're using bulk operations, which is something that primarily my own team at Canopy does. We do have automated analysis to help guide us or help us to alert to things, to outliers and to things that don't seem to be tracking correctly, and where things are trending. So we'll do some automation as far as that goes. But we're not using artificial intelligence for managing the day-to-day because of the flavor I was talking about, as far as like really understanding the target audience and how those search terms are contributing to the organic ranking of my products. But if you're having to justify, the other one I guess would be kind of in the middle, where before AI and after bulk operations, where you've got some rules based, where you can set up your own rules based on those metrics, but you're still seeing the data, you're still seeing the decisions being made, and you can go back there. But you've got to be diligent about going back and saying, are they doing, whether you're hiring an agency, you've got a virtual assistant, a software, if you don't have some kind of a process in place to periodically audit to make sure that they're doing the job that you hope that they're doing, then you are going to lose control of your business. And I don't want to see that for you. So my primary recommendation, if I haven't beaten it to death now, is to create some kind of a process where on a schedule, you periodically go and check for certain elements to make sure that whatever's being done automatically or virtually or outsourced is being done according to what you hope is getting done, what kind of progress this should be made, what kind of attention to detail should be done. Just come up with 5 of your own questions as part of your audit, and then maybe outsource that to a virtual assistant or somebody on your team to go and do that audit once a month or once a quarter, where the case is, just to make sure that's like, what, I'm not going to just hope that they're doing, I'm actually checking periodically. That's a good plan. Deborah, as far as the PDF goes, so we're going to be launching that. We're going to be announcing that on Monday, I think. We're going to be sending that out to everybody who signed up for this workshop. So appreciate everybody being here. We're going to send that out to you, I think. In fact, not even simply just say, here's how you can get it. It's more because, you're already on the list, right? So we'll probably just send you that PDF. We did a whole cool redesign of the 10 steps, pretty basic. And then this video will be pulled. Let's see here. I mean, obviously I'm recording it, and once in a while it fails to record and it bails on it. And so I can't guarantee that the recording will be available, but we typically try to push back out to everybody and say, hey, here's the replay if you missed anything or if you showed up late. So don't worry about that. We will announce as far as the actual get the 10-step PDF. Obviously, at some point, it'll probably be added into my YouTube channel. So if you didn't catch my YouTube channel, then that would be a good one to jump into. Let me see if I can get the links back here again. Okay, here, let me repost these links one last time here. So this is my Facebook community on Amazon. It's Amazon PPC troubleshooting. Here is my YouTube channel. I expect everybody to subscribe and like and share whatever else you're supposed to do with social media, right? Let's see here. And then there was a couple of resources that were asked as far as some additional things. Not only the last version of the 10-step checklist, but also the more expanded 17-step leaf, which is one of my more expanded systems that I do for ad management. And for those of you who want to get a free audit, there was a growth plan of your advertising and listing optimization for my team at Canopy. This is where you go to get your own growth plan set up. Whether or not you choose to partner with us at the end does not matter. You still get the information, and you can run with it if you will. All right, let me see what I missed here. Rajani, I'm really glad you were here. Glad that you were able to ask so many questions. That is cool. Let's see here. Let me grab the last couple of questions here. What are the best ways to get more reviews, Karthik? Okay, so been using Vine. Vine, as you know, sucks. It gets you reviews, but like I know on my last product, I think it took me about 4.5 months to get 5 reviews. It was so bad, and then of course they're not all 5-star reviews, so don't expect that. So Vine is way too slow. Feedback Whiz is still around. Okay, I guess I forgot the Feedback Whiz was even still around. Usually what I'm trying to do is what I mentioned before is join the discussion in social media, where my target audience for my kind of product is discussing their trips or whatever the activities that are surrounded about, where that product might be used. And, try to find where they're actually talking about a competitor product or something, and maybe they don't like it, or, maybe it's a case of, you're asking a seemingly benign question of like, I've been using this competitor product, but I'm not a fan of this and this. Has anybody found anything better, or is anything else that's missing there? Kind of asking the question of like, hey, can I get community advice about, what kind of product I should go with, and see what you get back, and maybe you can kind of join the conversation. You certainly don't want to close with, hey, I have my own product and here's the link. Don't ever do that. That is just the easiest way to just get banned from a group and shut out of your own community, from your target audience. Really listen to what they're saying, really ask questions to say, so wait a minute, so you're saying it doesn't do this, but why doesn't it do that? Or what is that, is that really a big deal, or is that just kind of an inconvenience? Get into the conversation. Yeah, it takes a little extra work. Then later on, you're coming back and you're saying, okay, I've got, you guys were telling, everybody was telling me before, it's like that they weren't a fan of these products that are currently on the market, i.e. your competitors. And these were some of the common problems. I think that I'm trying to bring to market, or I have brought to market, something I think that solves these. And I would love to get some feedback to see, did I nail it or did I miss something? And just let them contact and message you. You don't put in a link of any kind. let them contact you and ultimately give them an opportunity to purchase your product. And if they love it because you nailed it, then they're going to give a review. That's another way. The old school cheat way is to find friends and family who are not connected to you in any possible way. Not the same city, not the same social media connections, no same address, no same phone number, none of that kind of stuff. And that's a little hard to do. You've got to have like friend of a friend of a friend at the dog that belongs to the local church. Those friends. Sometimes you can also do it with if you are in a, they've got like in the United States, we've got community apps. And so if you're in a certain neighborhood in the Austin or San Antonio, Texas area, then there's maybe, where all the homeowners have, you can post things up and say like, hey, you know what, I'm bringing this new product to market. I'd love to get people's feedback. That's almost kind of like a little community chat. And you'll get a couple of people who will jump in and do that. And we'll say, yeah, sign me up or let me know how to get a hold of it. I'd be glad to give you feedback. That's another kind of a trick way that most people are not aware of, is what local in your own, neighborhood, and obviously if you're outside of your target market, then you may have to try to get into, try to qualify or try to get into some localized community where people are chatting about local domestic things. You might even try things as far as, additional traffic through like Facebook Marketplace or some of the local things like, OfferUp or some of these other kind of apps that allow you that are outside, that sell outside of the Amazon, eBay, Etsy kind of crowds. So those are other ways. All right. Another one that we are looking at too is like videos, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram Reels, and just showcasing your product, and then ask, hey, we're looking for product testers or something similar to that, and let people randomly reach out to you. Usually they're looking for a freebie on that. But if you simply just say, I'm not going to give it away for free, but I'll give you a discount or something, then you can usually get them motivated to purchase the product, get some sales velocity, if nothing else. All right. Any last questions before we depart? We've covered a lot. My voice is getting hoarse now. I appreciate everybody joining here. I really do. I appreciate all the questions at the end here. I always love doing those. I wish it was a round table where everybody was in the same room and we could just, mastermind and chat. That would be cool. But at least we can do this periodically. So, all right. Well, I'm going to close it out here. So thank you once again. Make sure you go out to canopymanagement.com, get that growth plan created for your brand. I will certainly reach out, certainly reach me, or we'll certainly follow up, and we will connect if you have any additional questions outside of this. So thanks everybody, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.